Brandon, we just talked to Smile about what the 3 wins and the tournament and all that means for you guys. But one thing that stood out to me was she talked about Laya and her progression and just how much she's improved and is coming. And I wonder if that tournament showed that more. I know you had talked about it before, but are you seeing that more and more right now?
I think she played well. I think, having to step into the starting lineup and have the versatility to play, both 1 and 2 for us. She's grown tremendously. I think even from a communication standpoint, when you play 3 very different opponents in 3 days, the game plan and terminology and everything that you're using, I think she's so much more comfortable, December of this year than maybe a year ago.
And for the team as a whole, obviously the experience is great and you play some good teams, but what does 3 wins and bringing home a trophy and all that mean for this program at this point in this season?
Well, I think, from a coach's standpoint, we played at 1:30, we played at 4, we played at 4. So all of our preparation in game 2 and 3 was in the film room and hotel ballroom walkthroughs. And it's the first time this team has had to prepare that way, no practice, no shoot around. So I think from our staff's perspective to be able to evaluate, how does this team, prepare in that way when we can't do a lot physically, I think was a real positive. Obviously when you go play in a really big time tournament's been going on for this 25th anniversary of the tournament, and you play 3 games in 3 days and you're not 100% healthy, to be able to grind out some really close wins, I think is great for the development and progress of this particular team.
Coach, I asked Maya this, obviously the NCAA tournament, this tournament, the recruits you've gotten the last couple of years. Have you seen the progression, or is this what you envision this program being where it's at now, or even obviously what can be in the next couple of years?
I think I've talked a lot about just the trajectory of the program. We're not where we want to be yet, but I do think that, we are a program on the rise. And I told our team, after the Auburn game that they should feel like they're part of a program. They're not part of a team. And I think we've finally, gotten Kansas women's basketball to the point where we're a real program. We're not just a team.
Hey, Coach. We talked. I feel like everyone's been talking about the newness maybe surrounding all the new players, all the transfers, and the additions. Is there anything in particular through the first 8 games you're proud of what you've seen from your squad and you've really learned that maybe you didn't know? Because you learn a lot in the offseason, but you don't know until you actually hit the floor and the 7-1 start. Is there anything you're really happy about?
Well, I think first and foremost is the versatility of the players that we have and their ability to move around and learn different positions, play different positions with the injuries that we've had. And then secondly, we've played very different opponents. So this team so far has shown itself with an ability to make adjustments at halftime, make adjustments from game to game in terms of how we're going to play this or play that, or pick and roll coverage, or here's things offensively we have to do this game that's different than the last. We've always felt like it's a game of adjustments, and so far with this team, we've been really pleased with their progress and ability to do that.
A follow-up on Laya. She had 3 turnovers in the whole tournament, and she had double that in one game. What have you done with this girl? And then we knew that she was going to come out of that little funk, and she finally did. Was there any secret, anything you did to bring her out of that?
Well, I think in Laya first, she threw it to everybody in the gym, not wearing a Kansas uniform for a while. And I think it was just she was just trying too hard. She really wanted to increase her role and her value on this particular team, and I just think she was trying too hard. And I think now she's settled in. She understands that she's going to be a really big part of our team, whether that's starting, whether it's coming off the bench. So I think she feels like, okay, now I can, play a little bit more under control. I don't have to press so much. With Elle, I think we have to give transfers a little bit of grace, just like we do freshmen. Maybe not as much time, but some of that was we didn't have a lot of things in for her specifically, and maybe her skill set in those early games, where now we've had time to install some things to get her in the post, to get her in mid-range opportunities, and not just be solely a three-point shooter, because she's much more than that, and I think that's really helped her.
You talked after beating Auburn about having Samaya and her being the best player on the floor. What kind of confidence can it provide for you as a staff, but also for the other players out there, knowing just how much of an asset you have in Samaya?
Well, I think we saw late last year, and then obviously in these games, that in a fourth quarter, in crunch time, she has a tremendous ability to just control the game. And when you have a player that has the strength and the versatility, that she shot 91 free throws on the season in 8 games. I think that is, whether it's a security blanket for our staff, but also knowing our players know that, we've got a player as good as anybody that we're going to play at any point during the year.
When she walked in, Doug Self introduced her as the tournament MVP, and she laughed and looked down. And I mean, you know her obviously as well as anyone. She that stuff doesn't matter to her, does it?
I think that she wants to win. She wants to represent Kansas very, very badly in a positive way, and I think she wants to make her teammates better. I think that's who she is.
You knew that the whole time you recruited her, all that, or does this even surprise you? Maybe?
I've known that young woman for a long, long time, and I think that she just wanted to make Kansas women's basketball better, and that's what she tries to do every single day.
Coach, you said something, meaning Samaya against Auburn, when they were down 6, they were smiling and they were still having fun. Do you incorporate that into them or instill that into them, or does that just come from the players and, hey, let's just have fun out here even though no matter what the score is?
Well, I think, we talked a lot about in that particular game, prior to the game, the importance of having poise and composure. Because of Auburn's style and the makeup of their team, we felt like that, that we would have an opportunity maybe to out-team or out-together at some point. There was going to be some key stretches where we had to be the more unified team. And even being down 6 with 47 seconds, our team didn't fragment. They didn't waver. They knew that we would have a very specific approach to how we wanted to address the final minute. And, I thought we executed really well.
I know Jordan Webster hasn't played yet this year. There was some stuff said on the ESPN Plus broadcast. Do you have an update on what her status looks like going forward?
Yeah, I don't. She's got a hip injury that's problematic, that is potentially surgical. So we're just kind of waiting on some final words there.
Having her versus not having her, how do you feel like that impacts what your initial plan was going into the year versus what reality is now?
Yeah, she was a really big part of our initial plan going into the season, and we hate that Jordan hadn't been able to participate at this point. But we saw her as a potential starter. Obviously, had a terrific career, out at Riverside, and just frustrating that she hadn't been able to participate.
Anything else for Brandon? All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks.
questions.
Yes, Amaya, what was the experience like overall, and what can the momentum from those wins do for you guys?
Virgin Islands was very fun. We got to connect as a team. We did a lot of things together, whether that was the buddy system, walking around, and really just chilling with each other. And then the tournament in general, I feel like we can really build on, just keep playing as a team and focusing on our team defense and just guarding together as a whole.
So Maya, obviously the tournament last year, obviously the tournament champions for this.
Yeah.
Did you envision this program being what it is now? Obviously there's a lot of season left. Some of the recruits that have come in.
Mm-hmm.
Did you envision this program being like that when you came in here?
Yes, that's the only reason I came, just to see it grow and the potential that we still have and what we can be. And I feel like we're on a rise. There's so much work that still needs to be done, but we're going to continue putting the work in together.
Hey, so what'd you learn, about this team through this tournament? 3 games, 3 days, and a really tough win there for the championship.
Yes, I learned that we're relentless and very resilient. The Auburn game, we were down 6, 1 minute left, and we were still smiling on the court as if we had nothing to worry about. We knew that the game was over when that clock was over, and we did everything that we could down to the wire, down to the last second to come out with a big win.
So, Mike, do you see any similarities in what this trip can do for you guys compared to the Europe trip last year?
I don't understand.
These trips can do a lot to help team building, like you were
Yes.
mentioning. Do you see any similarities between what effect this most recent trip can have for you guys?
Yes, I mean, last year, our trip to, you said Greece, correct? The Europe, yeah. Our Europe trip was honestly more vacation based, and this trip was it's just straight business. And of course, we all hung out together and we did everything together. But I feel like it was mostly a big impact when it comes to being on the court instead of just off the court things. Like we've already had chemistry. We built that in the summer just so we can be in the position we are now.
I don't know how much you had the chance to talk about this yet, but how exciting is it for you to see all the freshman talent that's signed to play next year and beyond?
I'm very excited. I know every single one of them, especially the one from Kansas, Blue Valley North, Julia. And I am very familiar with Keely just because she's came to Kansas a lot. And we have some great shooters. We got some great posts coming in forward. They're great. We're excited for sure. And just seeing that we're number 6 was honestly very uplifting because it's like we did what we needed to do and we got them.
So Maya, what's the key? You 3 wins, 3 quality wins.
Mm-hmm.
Opponents people know, names people know. I mean, what's the key to kind of keeping that rolling from this point on and building on it?
To stay level-minded. There's so many teams that we still have to play. We're not even in conference. But I know my team's very driven. They just want to win, and we don't really get over our heads. I know we won, but we still have another game in a couple days.
Did you feel like those wins were something you guys needed to sort of
Yes.
prove to yourselves, hey, here we go?
Yes, of course. You always need to win, especially those teams are really good. They're all over social media. They're all on a map, especially you and I. They've really put themselves out there, and we came through every time.
Anybody particularly benefit from this 3 wins in 3 days thing? You've obviously been there, done that, played in some big games, but maybe newcomers,
Yeah.
younger players, anybody on your team that you felt like, hey,
Yes.
look at what this did for her or will do for her?
Yes, I'd say for sure Reagan Williams, our freshman, she had a humongous task just guarding everyone's 5s, and Reagan didn't play high school basketball last year, so her coming out there and got introduced to an SEC 5, she really did good, and I think that'll boost her up by far. And then of course Laya, she's growing. She looks good, and we couldn't be more proud of Laya.
With some of the injuries y'all have dealt with in the early part of the season, I guess for those of you who have been able to play, what has that experience been like of, I guess, having less depth readily available, but also a small connected group?
Mm-hmm. I feel like everyone on our team contributes, whether they played or not. We have an amazing bench that brings up a lot of energy. We are missing some, and we do have some who are limited, but no matter what, we stuck together. Like, at the end of the day, we knew what we had to do for each other.